Hi, this is Matthew. I'm going to do another go through of a band's catalog, this time in the proper sequence. It is the Rolling Stones, and, well, they are quite the group. I'm going to go start from the very beginning with their first album, The Rolling Stones, but I'm going to talk about a couple of EPs, one before and one after. I cannot find them, though, to stream them. I've seen the track listing, which I will share here along with the regular album. But they're in some compilations of singles and stuff, but I can't find them by themselves. So I get the proper order, not have things randomly thrown in. I know, for example, in 1963, they first started with Decca. I know they put out a single called Come On, which if you find any of the early singles collections, they are there. It's there, I should say. And then they put out, I guess Decca didn't want, they weren't real sure about them yet, wanted to kind of test the waters a bit, so they made an EP first, self-titled it The Rolling Stones. And it did pretty well. So I'm going to have to give a couple of Wikipedia pages to find those, and then we'll go from here. So I'm going to go find the EP really quick so I can tell you what was on it. Okay, here we go. And yeah, they had EPs. We here in the U.S., as far as I know, just had an album. This is in mono, as far as I know. And we have the following tracks here. I think all covers, I think. We have side 1 here. They were big fans of R&B, and of course the blues were heavily influenced by these guys. It starts out with Bye Bye Johnny, which is a Chuck Berry cover. And then Money, which is the Berry Gordy sung one, with Jimmy Radford also giving her credit here. I just had to go dig around on EP collection or singles collections to find these, but side 2 contained, that's all side 1 was, those tracks. So we just had You Better Move On, which was an Arthur Alexander song. And Poison Ivy, Jerry Lieber, and Mike Stoller, which were the Coasters, I assume. And that is the entire thing. We have, of course, the Stones. Mick Jagger on lead vocals and tambourine. Brian Jones, guitar and backing vocals and harmonica and percussion. And then we have Keith Richards on guitar and backing vocals, and Bill Wyman on bass guitar, and Charlie Watts on drums. So that's the original 5-band lineup of the group. And now we will go find the EP. Very much we're trying to figure out our sound and what we want to do. There is a US version of this. Only one track was moved around. We'll get to that. Only in mono. There's no stereo versions of either album. We start with, of course, our first side, which this is the UK one, Route 66, Bobby Troop. That's been covered by many, many people. Nat King Cole comes to mind. I want to say Chuck Berry did it too, among many others. They did their version, pretty good version. Very young sounding Mick Jagger doesn't quite have his vocal style down. Still trying to figure that out at this stage. That will change very, very quickly. But still trying to figure themselves out. Charlie Watts' drums are very loud, very distorted. The whole thing just kind of feels like, we set up in the garage and recorded this thing. They didn't, but it's got that feel to it. It's very much their live set. It's things they would have played every night forever. They were very used to playing it. You do hear some squeaky pedals on Charlie Watts' drums every once in a while. That's pretty common back then. You'd hear that a lot on people's stuff. Yeah, that one. And then we have I Just Want to Make Love to You, Willie Dixon, covered by many people. Great song. They do a pretty good job here. Lots of hand clapping on this album. They do a lot of hand claps on different songs. Then we have Honest I Do, Jimmy Reed. Mona, I Need You Baby, which is Wells McDaniel, which is, I believe that's Bo Diddley's name, I think. They've got they do get the Bo Diddley sound pretty accurate, I think. Do a pretty good job of trying to make that happen. That's pretty cool, I thought, anyway. Then we have Now I've Got a Witness. Go to Uncle Phil and Uncle Gene, which was Phil Spector and Gene Pitney, of all people. I think this whole thing was in London. They didn't go to the U.S. for this one. There are some Chess Records things in a bit. I don't think this was all done in London, so I'm not quite sure if Decca hired them in or what exactly. But they were on this track with some feedback on it. Oh, and Anger Velch, which is what the Rolling Stones called themselves, but as a writing credit, because I don't know why. But so it's kind of an original, I guess, between them. I think it's an original instrumental type of thing. Kind of cool. Little by Little, which is Anger Velch, a.k.a. The Stones, and Phil Spector on this one. See, there's very much, yeah, it's very like, yeah, not Wall of Soundish Spectre, but like, very much like garage type closeness to me, or like, you're right next to them on the stage. It has a really interesting, it is in mono too, but it's very raw, very like, in your face. The whole thing. That is side one. Now, I will note that these are 12-track albums here and there, being the UK. Not like the Beatles' case where you had 14 tracks and Capitol made 4 albums to the 2 every year for a while. This does not happen here, weirdly. Why London Records here didn't do that, I don't know, because a lot of labels did, which drove the bands insane. But, why, they probably could have made another album of the EP and singles, maybe in between the 2 albums. They probably could have squished it in the middle and gotten all the things. I will say that I was looking ahead, and the next album, US and UK, are very different, so I'll have to listen to both of those. There's some very different songs. Some stuff from the EP. I think the second EP is definitely on here, but we'll get to that later. We'll get to side 2 here. Just wanted to make a note there. Here we have I'm a King Bee, James Moore, written. I'm not sure exactly which versions they used. It doesn't. I wish it would say who they were covering. It does not. Carol, which I know is a Chuck Berry track. I've heard that before. Did a pretty good job there. They really have the Chuck Berry thing going on fairly accurately. I mean, it's not Chuck Berry, but they've got that style going on with the guitar and everything. They've really tried to replicate that sound. I thought they did a pretty good job of doing so for a young band. Tell Me You're Coming Back. That is Keith Jagger and Mick Jagger, Keith Richards. Mick Jagger and Keith Richards. It just says Jagger Richards. You can very much tell that it's a different sound entirely from these covers, and you can kind of tell where they were kind of starting to go a little bit, just doing their own thing for sure. Which I'd heard. Yeah, I think my friend, he had that 63 to 60. I think it was a 60. Must have been the early years set. And that's definitely on there. I've heard that set from a friend of mine in high school. I thought it was like 63 to like 71 or something, but I'm not sure. But it was a collection of singles and such. Pretty cool thing for me. Then we have Can I Get a Witness? Ryan Dozer Holland stuff. Marvin Gaye is the one I think of that sang it. Not a bad job on that. You Can Make It If You Try. Ted Jarrett. And I think there's an organ here too. which I think was credited. So, and then we end with "Walking the Dog," Rufus Thomas. That's a cool song. So we're hearing them talking about like 50 cents, so it's kind of interesting. But yeah, direct cover there. No changes or anything. Pretty cool. Yeah. So that is the album. Yeah, it's about a 33-minute album, I think. Our version trims it down to about 31 minutes because the track difference, which I'll get to in a second, from London Records. Our version was called the Rolling Stones, and then they added England's newest hit makers. That's very much a really early label thing from that period, doing something like that. Hey, these are new guys from England. Go check them out. I don't know. We did weird stuff like that at this period, trying to capitalize on new bands and get you to, hey, they're not from here. Go check them out. They're from England. Go just see. So side one had, it's just where the only difference is. I will show you. Not Fade Away comes in. That replaces the Bo Diddley track. They went with the Buddy Holly song. And Norman Petty's also credited. I love the guitars on this one. It's very different. I don't think it's, if I recall, it's nothing like the original. I like it though. There was that single instead. That's the only difference. But that makes the length slightly off by a minute or so. But a cool song. So if you wanted to, now that we have playlists, you could totally just put this at the end of the other album. Or you could move it around wherever you wanted to put it. And make your own album. I'm not going to do that, but I would just, me being a screen reader user, I would just tack it to the end. It would be a good ending. And then if you knew where the EPs were, you could kind of put them, you could put like the first EP on here also and make it a little bit longer. Just a nice hint for people if they want to have one album with everything on it. And I assume you could tack them onto the second album as well with that EP. But I will show it here just to get it out of the way once I get there. Then we have Route 66 followed it. And then I Just Want to Make Love to You followed it. Honest I Do. Now I've got to witness the instrumental Phil Spector thing with... it doesn't even show... It just says Inger Felsch. Doesn't even show the Spector Pitney thing on this version. Little by Little. Oh. Yeah, that is Inger Felsch and Phil Spector. Okay, that's why. But yeah, those are two, which... Of course, we would know Phil Spector, of course. Oh, Phil Spector. Everybody knew who he was by then. So that makes sense to put those like that. And then we have side 2 contained I'm a King Bee, followed by Carol, the Chuck Berry. And then we had Tell Me You're Coming Back. That's a pretty cool song. I'm glad they included that here. We don't have the EPs or anything. Again, I'm surprised they didn't put out another album of the EPs and singles, or make an EP out of that or whatever, but they did not do that here. Apparently Canada got the British release of that EP that we don't have. I assume maybe they got the second one as well. Can I Get Witnesses next? You Can Make It If You Try, and then we end with Walking the Dog. So that's the difference. It's just the Bo Diddley track got removed with they put Not Fade Away on instead. But yeah, you could have. That would have been a good closer, even because it's short. That would have been a cool closer. If you want a nice upbeat track to end the album. Our personnel here. We have Mick Jagger on vocals, hand claps, tambourine, and harmonica, and also I do on King Bee and maracas, and Not Fade Away and Muna. But of course that's not on this album, but it's just, I guess, the general credits. So that's for both releases. But we obviously don't have Mona on our version, but they did on theirs. And it's on the streaming version is the UK one. And the US is also available, so you can hear both versions. Same mixes. I don't think there's any difference between them. Both in mono. I don't know of any difference. I think it's just the same mixes. There was nothing, no different takes like Apple would have tried to do to get it out earlier. They didn't do that with London. It's now under a label called Abco for these releases. Keith Richards with backing vocals, lead and rhythm, 6 and 12-string guitars. So he plays both. I wonder where the 12-string is. I'd like to know what track that was. I'm not familiar with the sound of a 12-string as much. Brian Jones, backing vocals, rhythm guitar, lead guitar, I'm keying and slide guitar. I'm walking the dog, harmonica, not fade away, and as much love to you. Now I've got a witness, tambourine, and tell me, can I get a witness whistling on Walk the Dog? Yeah. Bill Warming, backing vocals, bass hand claps, also. Charlie Watts, drums and hand claps. They all hand clapped. Unidentified musicians played by the Rolling Stones, tambourine, Mona, and Little by Little. That's kind of weird. There are some additional musicians on this. Alan Clark backing vocals on Little by Little. I don't know who Alan Clark is or was. Graham Nash backing vocals on Little by Little. Wow. So Graham Nash from the Hollies / Crosby, Stills, Nash / Young was on here before he was anybody important. So he must have been maybe a studio musician at this point. So how cool is that? G. Pitney is on piano on Little by Little, so he does play. Phil Spector percussion and maracas on Little by Little. Who knew? How cool is that Phil Spector played on this? Like actually played on it, not just produced it. Ian Stewart is organ on I've Got a Witness, and You Can Make It If You Try, and piano on Tell Me, and Can I Get a Witness? Production people. Angela Golden was the producer. Bill Farley, engineer. Nicholas Wright, photography for the album cover. And that is it. And I'm going to just save time for the next one. I'm going to go find that other EP called 5 by 5 to kind of get you in a teaser for what the albums will have. Let me go back. Oh, okay, here we go. Let me go find that other EP that came out after. These all came out in 64, but I believe that EP came out in 65. But I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to include it here just because it is. We're not on the actual album. It is next to this in the UK category. It's another very short one with some covers and stuff, but I'm going to go ahead and give the track listing anyway. That way you'll kind of know what to expect from the next album. I don't know if we're going to have too many of these, but I don't think we do. Oh, I have to go back or up. Because I looked at this already. We have, let me go down to that part of the article. Okay, yeah. Yeah, this was the kind of this, kind of our sandwich between the two. Okay, we have the following. On side 1, we have If You Need Me, which is a Wilson Pickett song with some other writers. Empty Heart, which Nanger Felch, aka aka the Stones. So that is an original. I think these do come up on because as I said, our US version and the UK version are different, totally different names and totally different track orders. 2120 South Michigan Avenue, Nanger Felch, which is that's where Chess Records was, or maybe still is. I don't know what is going on with Chess. Side 2 had Confessing the Blues, Davy Shannon and Walter Brown. Round and Around was a Chuck Berry tune. And that is all. They're just like 3-track EPs, so you could totally have made. So I think we do use some of these tracks on our version in the US here. But we'll get to that. Our personnel on it were Mick Jagger lead vocals and tambourine and harmonica. Keith Richards guitar and backing vocals. Brian Jones guitar and backing vocals and harmonica. Will Byman bass guitar. Charlie Watts is drums. Ian Stewart was the organ and piano again. They used him. No other versions here. Some other bands did cover some of these tracks, but I'm not worried about that. Yeah, but a cool album. Very much a band trying to figure itself out, what it wants to do, but being able to cover R&B songs in the meantime, like so many bands did. You cover what you like, which was R&B and rock and roll and some blues tunes, which do come into play in the next little bit here too. But you play what you're comfortable with. You're trying to get yourself figured out. Label's not quite sure what they want to do with you yet, what you're capable of. So do what you know. Do your covers. Do as you play live anyway. What people still what got them to like you in the first place. But pull out a couple of originals here and there and see how they go and see what happens. So yeah. This was the only, I think, album that didn't really chart very well. I think it wasn't in the top 5 either here or there. I forget which place, but it was the first attempt. You could tell there was some potential here. With like the comeback, that Tell Me song, and some stuff. So yeah, cool album anyway. Short albums, of course, at the time. Only mono. We'll see what happens with the second one, which is a preview. Is Rolling Stones number 2 in the UK, which would have been their preferred title. And then here it was called, this is like 12x5. I think it's 12 times 5, I assume, but Screamer says 12x5, but it was 12 times 5. So you got, so I assume it's a play on 12 songs from 5 band members. Much like 5 by 5, 5 songs by 5 people being the band. So I think maybe that's a play on words on that, but we'll find out. But that's the Rolling Stones self-titled with their EP before it and this 5 by 5 next to it in between the albums. So I wish we had gotten these, but we didn't really go for EPs much back then. You either had the album or you had singles, but you mostly worked, your singles around. You had your big hit or hits, and you sandwich other things between them. But at least here they only moved one song around, and they dropped the Bo Diddley, moved the Buddy Holly one on there instead. But yeah, I wish they had just put the other track on and just made 13 songs out of it and made it easier. And maybe put out some kind of album at the end of 64 or even early 65 to put your other singles on that you didn't put on plus this or something. But they didn't do that for some odd reason, which I can't figure out. But Capitol would have totally done that. They would have put 4 albums in from the 2. And they could have flopped tracks around and moved them around and had your A and B sides of singles and had your EP tracks. But at least, for sure, one album could have been made. Probably one album could have been made out of this if they'd wanted to. But they didn't. It probably was better for the Stones, but Beatles drove them crazy when Capitol did it. But yep, all we got was this album. We didn't get the EPs in between. Near as I can tell right now. But instead of the Rolling Stones number 2, we will get 12 times 5, 12x5. But that'll be the next review that I will do. But that was this one. As I said, very much a band trying to, see what they can do. What will Decca allow them to do first? Covers are safe. Be put on a track or 2 here and there of your own. Maybe hide your name at first. Get Phil Spector and Gene Pitney to help you out. Those are big, well-established names, of course. Gene Pitney had some stuff anyway. Phil Spector was a big producer. So, along with some other stuff going on. I don't know if they produced, but they did help them at least with some writing and playing of instruments and such. But yeah, a good first go for them. obviously come back, or Tell Me Come Back, as it's called, very much of what's happening in the future. So things are happening, but as we'll see next, we'll have a few more glimpses of what they are wanting to try to sound like at first. But that'll be for next time. These are the album is available to stream probably anywhere. I could not find the EPs on Apple Music. I just find the albums. There are some EPs, but they're not what I want. They're like later stuff. And they are on some of those compilations of early singles, but I don't think they're necessarily in order, which is the way I would prefer them to be. And there's, I think, some slight differences. So I can't really pin down the EPs like I would like to, and there's not a set of EPs to go find. So I'm kind of stuck. I don't know what to do about it. But yeah, that is that, and we will move on next time to the next album. I'll see you guys next time in another video.